like to see that driveway allow access from Pine Street to our larger parcel of land. The reason being that, as you folks are very aware, Newbury Street quite often, especially on weekends, gets quite traffic snarled. This particular piece of property is located near to the portions of the highway that bottleneck a bit, where 95 is entering Route 1 and combining. And as such, the fire station, the West Peabody branch of the Peabody Fire, if there were to be a fire on this site today, they would access it from Johnson Street down to Pine, come out Pine, and head to Route 1. If we are rezoned, one of the advantages of that rezoning would be to allow for this driveway, as is shown on the plan, to be added. And I know that there are, there are members perhaps of this board that would not like to see this property to become utilized as a cut-through, and as such would not want to see people exiting Newbury Street because it's slow and backed up, heading out to Pine Street and then heading to wherever they may be going, West Peabody, Middleton, Reading, etc. I do believe that several of these streets, Broad Street and Pine, I think they're marked on the weekends that there is no entry, I think, from Route 1. In order to dissuade people from cutting through West Peabody to get to cities and towns that are located to the west. The other result of the zone change would be, and to finish that thought, my conversation with the fire department was that we could supply a gate and transponder that was completely compatible with the transponders that they use around the city, and that gate could be emergency access only and not at all utilized by residents or neighbors, but would be there entirely for safety. The other reason we're asking for the zone change to include this parcel of land is this including that parcel of land into our request would allow us to go before the City Council with a greater density, and as such, we would be providing economically a greater area to spread around our requirements under inclusionary zoning. 25% of these units must need be under our inclusionary zoning bylaw. They must be included, or they must be developed to offer as affordable housing. And so that number of units would increase that would be available, getting us closer or further beyond our 10% requirement. And it would also spread the economic burden loss, if you will, of the development of these units over a greater number of units, such that we would be able to absorb that cost. At the current time, under the yield that would be available with only the Max Trailer Park land, it is very questionable whether this project is financeable given the number of units that would need to be provided for affordable. So we get to a real comfort zone with respect to being able to finance the property, being able to show a reasonable profit, and to be able to develop the same quality units as are being proposed as market rate units. The density number would be, we would, if we were limited to the Max Trailer Park parcel only, we would be in a position to offer 50 or construct 54 units. By including Pine Street, we get to the number 72. The 54 units yields 13 affordables, and the additional 72 units would yield 18 units of affordable. So we're happy to answer questions that the board may have. We're also happy to consider your thoughts with respect to this driveway accessway. I had thought it might be convenient or acceptable to utilize that also as that gate that is going to be equipped with a transponder. Could my clients utilize it also for their people only? In other words, key card type ability to get out onto Pine Street should they want to. I think that the board probably has thoughts on it. I'm sure that when we get to the city council will have thoughts. We're willing to provide that access way under either circumstance. We would not be able to add that access way for the fire department or any other parties if it is not rezoned. We could not use that residentially single-family home land to become the access way or even emergency access to the parcel of land for the multifamily under the overlay district. So there are, I believe, some compelling reasons and that send us here. The most important of which, I think, is to try to get our density to a level where the project becomes financeable and becomes a project that the city can be proud of and would yield the 18 additional affordable units. Thank you.
This time we'll accept questions from the board. Yes.
Just a couple of questions. First of all, the house that's coming down, that new lot there, is that just going to be a driveway only, or will there be structures encroaching onto that area as well?
No, there would be no structures whatsoever. The plan would then become, as you see here, this would be totally green space.
Okay.
The units that are being proposed would be located entirely on Max, and this driveway would be landscaped between ourselves and our neighbor, and then this side would become completely open space.
And if the city approves this, you said that they're going to build condos there. If this is approved and you have that driveway access and so forth, can the builders just turn around, or the owner just turn around and say, well, I'm going to do a 40B there? In other words, if this goes through, this zoning thing, okay?
Right.
And you get to tear that house down and you have that access, that
Right.
driveway access, all right? Now, so so the land is all set to go. And you stated that the owners want to build condos there. Can they change their mind and just do a 40B with the approvals that you get with that?
No, actually, were we interested in pursuing 40B, we wouldn't need this zone change.
Okay.
So this is a more viable alternative to the 40B in as much as I think the process is more streamlined. There is zoning available to us that would allow us to build the project that we want to build, and there would be no need to go to 40B. And I think that certainly the city council, if we are able to get the zone change, then we would also need to go back to the city council for a special permit, and they could condition their special permit in that fashion.
And as far as the driveway access, and putting a gate and stuff like that, I mean, the only access would be from Route 1 otherwise, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, it's clear.
Even if we put that driveway there and the board recommends that going forward, that a condition be placed on it, that it be for emergency vehicle access, then it would have the transponder and there'd be no cut-through capacity or access or egress for the people that live there.
Yeah, to me, I think it'd be crazy not to allow the new condo owners access to exit and enter from that new driveway. So otherwise, you know, they got to go on Route 1 and take a right. You know, it doesn't make sense. They should have access to there, so you mentioned something about a key card or something that they would have. I mean, that to me would be the way to go, just my opinion. Just a couple more questions, I'm sorry. You mentioned that the affordable housing is 25%. Drew, you might be able to answer this. I thought it was only 15%.
20, yeah, under the zoning ordinance, it's 25% under just general, if you were to build 8
Oh, okay,
plus,
because,
then
so it's because it's a zoning issue, it's 25. Okay.
zoning issue, it's under the zoning overlay district.
Overlay district, yes.
And then the last thing I have is on this notice here for the public hearing, sorry, I'm going to switch. It's, you know, it mentions the actual 3 acres, but it doesn't mention in the notice that driveway lot. Now, shouldn't that be on the public notice that goes out?
I think you have the old one. It was revised and it was sent out
Well, you
again.
just gave it to me today.
The one,
Yeah. So I don't have that revised.
I might have given you the old one as well.
Okay, so it is on there. The
But it is, it was
notification-
changed. It was originally put out as 176. It was changed to 14 Pine.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the Newbury Street parcel does not require a zone change. They, as mobile home, were included in the overlay district as it was created by assigning assessors maps and lots. So we're adding, my zone changes to add one more lot to the overlay district that was approved several years ago.
And, yeah, I understand that.
that's the Pine
But
Street
the
lot.
notification I have does not list the driveway one, and that's the only, I just wanted to make sure that we did the notifications right to begin with. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Through the chair. Jack, the density issue in the 54 units versus 72, are those being achieved horizontally or vertical? You're adding more floors to get to the 72, or is this you spreading out?
No, we would, it's vertical. The garage, part of our garage would be garage under, and we would then comply with zoning. And there would be 3 stories of living space in the garage underneath.
Is the garage underneath or underground?
Pardon?
Is the garage underneath or underground?
Underneath, underground. Underground.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's only 3 stories above ground with the 72 units? 4 stories?
4 stories, but that would be allowed by zoning without a variance, correct?
Okay, and I guess that's kind of part 2 to my, how many variances will you need, even if this is approved? Are there any others, or
No, none.
just a special permit for
None.
what? Just a special permit?
Special permit
For what? What was the special
for, under the overlay district for this development. We would need to finish the engineering and apply to you folks again, site plan review, and then go to the city council.
Gotcha. And then typically, you know, I know with a lot of zoning overlays that we hear, it's typically with Mr. Bellavance being the proponent of said overlay. Do we have community development's opinion or anything from Kurt about his opinion on the matter, or anything from your office?
Again, this is not to go in front of city council. We would want to see, we've been in talks, Kurt has been in talks with Pyramid Holdings about the project and about potentially what could go there and what it would look like. And I think we'd want to see kind of this is, right now it's just a plan on a piece of paper once we start to see engineering and kind of vet it through a little bit more.
Gonna say, because I'm, you know, mildly uncomfortable considering anything, not hearing any other traffic or any other impact studies associated with 72 new condominiums.
Well, and I think we also have to, so this is a happenstance where they have a plan in front of us for this zoning change, much like other ones that have come before us where they're trying to just add a lot in. You know, we're not really, yes, they have a project in front of us, but we are also, the planning board would be looking at this as a strict zoning change. So adding this lot in, is that the right move? But again, it's a happenstance where we have a project in front of us, so we know what's going to be there. This could also have just been, we want to add it in because we have a future project coming down the line.
Any other questions from the board?
Thank you. I have a few. So you said the park is closing. That's a certainty? Is that?
There are 15 units in the park now that are occupied. And yes, there is a procedure to close the park that has not yet been officially begun.
Okay. And so you kind of answered the other question about the number. So there's 15 units currently now, 15 mobile homes?
There happen to be 15 mobile homes that are occupied in the park at the current time, yes.
Okay. I myself am not in favor of allowing the future residents to use that egress and ingress to Pine Street. I would be in favor of it being a fire and police and ambulance triggered gate. That section of Pine Street is very narrow and doesn't have sidewalks. So that's probably not a great idea to do that. Fire trucks, police cars with the sirens and lights going. I'm sure they could negotiate that turn just fine, but I can't imagine residents going in and out of there that'd be a good thing to do. I as well as Mr. Gagnon next to me, was a bit confused by that 25% because I thought the city council. Yeah.
I was gonna say, it's all right.
It was not, yeah, it's 20.
It's 20% under the overlay district.
Right. Right, so your numbers aren't right there. So 10% of 5.4 is, and, right, 10.8 rounding, probably, so you round up. So that's 11, and whatever, okay. Because I know there's 3 different inclusionary zoning percentages. There's 15 just normal, 20 overlay, 25 40B, and I think that might be why Joe was asking about the 25. At this time, I don't have any further questions.
I have a couple questions and then just a couple points to make as well. Just a reminder, because I think, just to remind the board that as part of the zoning ordinance, there are certain things within site plan review that these applicants would have to hit with a future project, i.e. landscaping, materials, open space requirements, pedestrian access as well. Again, this is a situation where we have a plan in front of us. We might not always have a plan in front of us, so I think kind of, yes, I think to talk about like access, but like getting caught up in some other items of this plan, like this could definitely change when it comes back if it gets approved as well. So I just wanted to make that clear. And then, Jack, that parcel 14 Pine Street, the part that's not being developed, that will be grass for right now, how large is that? Do you know?
This is Mike, why don't you come up, Michael? Michael Patrick, who is my client, just for the record.
27,000 square feet.
So I guess this would come back to site plan, the roadway width, regardless. Do you have plans of developing that lot in the future if you get this residential overlay?
No, if you were to grant the overlay, we would take this plan through and we were successful at the city council, then we would develop in accordance with this plan coming back with site plan review, and then after completion of site plan review, applying to the city council. So there would be nothing developed on that parcel of land.
With this plan? But you,
That's correct.
But it has a right. But you could in the future develop that parcel.
It's R1 zoning, so as such, we could replace the house but we couldn't.
You could also redevelop it under the zoning overlay district, because it would now be added.
It's smaller
Yeah.
than, well, you need 43,500 square feet, minimum lot size, so it would be below the minimum, so it wouldn't fall into that.
Perfect.
Drew, excuse me, through the chair. I would imagine that if they're using this to create units and, you know, adjust the density and adjust the number of units that they can put, then they can't circumvent it by putting, like, selling that house lot. It seems impossible to do that. And the building inspector should know that, and he should reject anybody who tries to put a building permit on it, and put a building on that.
I get that. I was just saying that this will, technically, it's 2 lots. Are you going to keep it 2 lots? Or are you going to ask for, you're going to combine? So
Yeah, with if we get to our final, plan, they would be combined in a condominium site development plan.
Which then would, I also was curious because, yeah, and I'm talking about in the future if they're supposed to come back for site plan review, as part of, again, the residential overlay district, there's certain things that we want. No, I'm just saying that, I get that, but potentially this is going to become 1 lot one day, so they could develop it, but I was saying that if it stays open space, we'd want to see some sort of landscaping or something there.
Well, another strategy might be to force them to put a pretty thick buffer there, and then that buffer is tied to the plan, and then they can't get rid of the buffer. Like a 10-foot, big, thick buffer of trees. And then that's tied to the plan, and then you can't put anything there.
Yeah, and again, this is all be discussed, though, if this plan was to go through and if this gets approved.
Right, but, you keep saying that this is just this lot, and I understand that this is just this lot. But this lot is leading to a bigger project.
Yes, that's indeed true.
And we're going in with our eyes open here. That's the way I see it. So.
Any other questions from the board?
Jack, does your client own the property, or do, like, the residents of the mobile homes have part ownership? Is it like a co-op?
No, no co-op, strictly mobile home park in which they pay rent. And they own both parcels of land.
Mm-hmm. And my
Clients do,
my
the
final-
people here tonight.
Yeah. So, and my second question is, what happens if some of these people are happy where they live and they don't want to move? I mean, I know the eviction process and all that other stuff, but I don't know, I know that there's certain, laws on the books that kind of are specific to mobile home parks and the residents there and so forth.
That is correct, and those are also the offshoot of our rent control ordinances. And we have a rent control board, too, so.
Through the chair. And I'm sorry, Jack, just educate me. Does the use of this overlay for a project like this allow for the use of side streets as access? The overlay itself, does the zoning?
The overlay district itself?
If you were granted this request,
Yeah.
does that overlay even allow for the use of side streets as access?
I believe for the purpose to which we want to put this lot, yes, I believe they do.
Okay. I mean, I think that I'd want clarity on that point, if we could definitively say yes or no, that this even, and I know, Drew, you've repeated that we're in a unique position where we've got someone coming before us with a proposed project, when normally we hear overlays without that opportunity. But I think that makes this unique almost in a in a negative way, because we hear much about it, and we've got a lot of questions related to the size and the density and the in the use of this, that maybe perhaps if it wasn't attached to a project and we just had community development here before us, again, being the typical proponent for an overlay, I would feel more comfortable if this recommendation was coming from our community development office and not with a specific project that we clearly have tons of our normal planning board type questions related to. It feels like we need more info.
Just to clarify, this is not new, the zoning overlay. So the
No,
zoning overlay district already exists. This is just to add a lot in. So I get what you're saying is that we want to see more. I mean, this will again be vetted up at the city council, who ultimately has the final decision on this. This is just a recommendation by the, the board. And
Just feel like it's hard for me without, again, because we've gotten a little tip of the iceberg, it's hard for me to sort of get behind a letter of support to city council with so many questions. Right? I've got concerns about the density, the height, on this property, even just hearing the little tidbit that we've heard about it, and especially mixed with the confusion about the number of units. I mean, no offense, Jack, but you're coming here before us telling the economics of it don't work with 25% inclusionary zoning, and perhaps we're even learning that it's 20%. Do the economics work at 54 units if it's only 20%? Do we have to jump all the way up to 72? I've got a lot of hesitation and questions regarding.
And then just to clarify as well, I think, yes, again, we have this plan in front of us. This is a different instance. Usually these are thought up in a way of potential future development, but we have this plan in front of us tonight. A lot of the items being brought up, though, I think do fall under this purview of if there was no project or plan in front of us, it's, the traffic, the density on a lot this size and things of that nature as well. So I think getting stuck just thinking at this one project, because again, this project could change before it comes back. Have you guys done engineering yet and looked at the site and?
Nitty-gritty engineering, we've done some rudimentary, we know where our water will go, we know. But no, we have not done full-blown. We've worked out a grading plan, and to answer Matt's question with respect to access, it says new curb cuts on existing public ways should be minimized, and site access should avoid smaller residential streets and neighborhoods. So I think that goes to the issue of whether we get to utilize it for anything beyond police and fire. So,
Yeah, I suppose the word access is up for debate, right? Is it all access, or just public safety, or just,
I think it's all access, because when you think about what was included in the overlay district, almost every parcel of land in the overlay district is either on Route 1 or 114. And as such, they all have access, generally speaking, they all have access to the larger Route 1, Route 114. But there are, I think some of the, did some of the mall get the advantage of overlay? Yeah.
It's not the mall, it's on Prospect Street.
So as such, they don't have access to major highway, but Prospect Street would be their limit. But we can certainly abide by the direction that the overlay district gives us, and provide no access for our tenants, if that's our owners, if that's what the board recommends and finally comes through in the special permit for the city council.
I mean, I think just to, Drew, not to belabor the point, but had this come with not a project, I feel like I'd have these same questions about traffic and about density and about things like that. So, I mean, it's all well and good, 54 units, 72 units. It is a major convergence, as Jack mentioned. I feel like I would still be seeking the opinion and the recommendations of our planning department if there was no project before us or being proposed for the lot as well. So I'd have just as many questions and be just as hesitant to write a letter of support of something I know nothing about, unless it came with, those that know and support the city telling us what if it's recommended or not. So it's my own 2 cents.
Through the chair, I'm sorry.
I have the same concerns that Matt has expressed. So is community development prepared to support the zoning change here, or are you remaining neutral on this particular proposal?
As of right now, we're remaining neutral, but like we said, I mean, kind of, again, the whole point is we've been meeting with the proponent and discussing it with them about their plans there as well. So, you know, that could change prior to the city council meeting.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, Mr. Gonzalez, some of his comments, but correct me if I'm wrong, either Drew or Jack. This project, if it gets built the way you suspect it gets built, with a certain amount of units, with a certain amount of density, and a certain max building height, that's not coming back to us. We're never going to see this again.
No, this would have to go through site plan review. It's stated in, this is just like
Okay.
a normal building.
So that's where it comes back, through the site plan review.
And they would need a special permit.
Yeah,
So not
I
only,
understand that part.
Site plan review, it would be here before I'd be back at the council, under their Rule
Okay.
18 or whatever it is.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, the laws pertaining to the public hearing, if there's anyone here that wishes to speak in favor of this amendment,
there's some people online too. I don't know if they want to speak. If anybody that is accessing the meeting via Zoom wishes to speak in favor, please raise your hand. Use the raise your hand function now. Seeing none.
hearing none, anyone here wishing to speak in opposition? If you wish to speak in opposition, come to the podium, state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Ted Neri. I live at 54 Linden Road in South Peabody. I'm here before I'm the chairman of the Rent Control Board, so there's a lot of questions you folks have. There's about 60% of the information has been given tonight with regards to notice to quit as a mobile home park. We are the certificate granting authority to do so. We first heard about this plan a month ago when Councilor Gamache took their request through the city council and kicked it to us. And there's been history here. Pyramid Holdings bought the park in July of 2016, as I recall, and you bought the house January of 2018. According to the city documents, the assessment, those are the dates that the sale went through. Okay, well, it doesn't matter. And I'm not going to take up your time. I wanted to come before you folks, and ask you, and I'm going to ask you folks, probably one of the most important boards that should be a part of the conversation and should be CC'd on all of your plans is the Rent Control Board. We're the ones that grant the notice to quit. We only found out about this a month ago. Now, as I recall, we spoke 6 years ago when you bought the park that there were grand ideas of keep it as a mobile home park, and the whole back part of the lot was going to become newer mobile homes. Oh, is the sewer going to come in, the plans for sewer to come in through?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I think that the person speaking should address the board only.
I apologize.
Thank you.
Through the chair. Could we find out if the sewer is going to come through Pine Street? Because right now, there's a stub that only feeds 3 of the mobile home parks at the front, and the rest of it is on cesspool. So I would be interested to know which direction sewage is coming in, especially for the neighbors off of Pine Street. But neither here nor there. I'm just coming before to ask respect from you folks. Let us know, through the chair, sorry. Could you, anything that comes before you folks, board to board, could we be CC'd in on it? I would greatly appreciate it, because we've had no knowledge of any of this. That's all. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak in opposition?
Hi, my name is Gary Gagney. I live at 176 Newbury Street in the mobile home park. I was aware of this maybe 3 weeks ago. I've heard nothing about the plannings going on as far as turning the place into condos. Initially, I heard that we were going to add more trailers and that was going to be made a mobile home park and that sewerage was going to come in and everybody would be happy. Right now, the plan doesn't look what I was told. I also am a person, my father lives there, he's got dementia. He was the manager of the park. So I've moved in with him and I've kept an eye on the park for these people. I just would like to know, I've never gotten any notification of what's going on in this mobile home park. I've got a man that's 95 years old with dementia. Myself moved in with him, and we need to know what's going to happen to us. What's going to happen to us? I mean, it happened to the people in the mobile home park, people that are sitting there right now. It's a question that I needed to ask, and that's all I really want to do. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark Bradbury. I live in the park too, and like Mark Bradbury. I've been there 22 years, and for the last 10, we have no idea what we can do with our trailers. We can't sell them. We can't fix them up. We can't do anything with them. It's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's all over the sewerage crap. And I don't know. I just would like to know what's going on, and if they get this thing on Pine Street, it gives them an exit out there. So, I mean, they're going to probably end up with these plans, and we're going to end up being nowhere. So that's all I get to say, I guess. I mean, we went through a lawsuit before when somebody tried to buy the park illegally. That took 4 years. We did win that one, and then these people bought it, and they did tell us that they were going to leave it as a mobile home park and develop the back and stuff. And now we're back in the same boat we were in 9 years ago. Thank you.
I'd just like to clarify that this is filed through the city council. We're strictly, the planning board is just CC'd, as part of a zoning amendment, the proponent has to file with the city council. The city council then refers that to the planning board, us here tonight, for a letter of recommendation. So this was never supposed to be like, we didn't include you on anything. This is through the city council, and as part of that process, it comes before the planning board. Is there anyone via Zoom that wishes to speak in opposition? You can use the raise the hand function.
Final words from Skelty.
It would appear that at least two members of the planning board would like to see a recommendation from the Community Development Department, at least a suggestion of how they feel about it at this time, maybe not going right through to, approval of some kind of a project. But if that's the case, then I'm happy to continue this hearing until your September 1 meeting to give the time to the Community Development Department to respond to the inquiries made tonight.
So to that point, community development has always been in favor of housing in the residential overlay district. We do not have a comment on this yet because we'd like to see a actual plan. I mean, right now this is a proposed plan, but we want to see a hard concrete plan on what will happen there and a plan that meets the items that are set forth within this zoning overlay district as it's written in the zoning ordinance. So if we'd like to set a meeting between community development again to discuss further, that's something that we can easily do with our office with Kurt and myself, and we can discuss this proposed plan and the items that that community development would like to see and the city would like to see in there. So we can do that between the next meeting, and we could then potentially again write a comment letter if the board wishes, or you can vote tonight.
At this time, I'll accept either a motion to recommend zoning amendment to the city council, or a motion for Mr. Kelty to continue the public hearing till September 1st.
All right, Mr. Chair, I make a motion to continue to the September 1st meeting in hopes that we'd gain more information, clarity, perhaps a correction of some of these statistics and numbers, as well as some comment from our community development office.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
I
Public
don't-
hearing will be continued
Thank you.
to September 1st.
Through the chair, I'd just like to make a quick comment that if you will. Okay.
This time we'll return to the regular meeting of the planning board. First order of business is approval of the minutes of the July and August meetings.
That's the previous meeting, the August 4th meeting is in front of you, and it was emailed out.
Mr. Chairman, move approval of the minutes of the July and August meetings.
We have a second? Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Land Court, site building permit plan, 190 R Newbury Street.
I think we'll wait for Attorney Kelty, but he's will be present on all of these. We have not heard anything back yet from Department of Public Services. I am attending a meeting with them and the applicant next week, though, to discuss this project. So I foresee in the very near future some sort of comment letter from the Department of Public Services regarding this application. But I do know that Attorney Kelty had mentioned to me earlier that he might wish to continue it, but I will let him decide. 190 Rear Newbury. 190 Rear Newbury.
The rear Newbury, I believe that I did learn this afternoon that Meridian has given their peer review to Mr. Politz, and Mr. Politz is hopeful of turning that to us for us to respond to, I think, as early as next week. And I have a meeting on that 190 rear with Mr. Politz on the 25th. So I would ask that this matter be continued to 9/1.
Just need a motion and a second.
A motion,
Mr. Chairman, move this issue to September 1st.
you have a second?
I just, before we move to meeting dates, I'm just a little nervous. It's almost happened tonight. Would the applicant be okay if we were to move this, let's just say, to the second Thursday of the month, just in case that we, for some odd reason, we cannot get a quorum on the 1st? We give ourselves leeway. The meeting would still happen the 1st, but this is much like just in case there was a special occasion that happened that we couldn't have a quorum. Would that be amenable?
So the second is what?
So it would be the 8th, September 8th instead.
Could you change your?
Mr. Chairman, if I could amend my motion to continue the matter to our second meeting in September on September 8th.
The second? We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I guess you just need to, just for future reference, I guess I'm going to ask for every single continuance now that we go a week past. But you just have to say we just to continue date of action until X date.
Next item, 55 Pulaski Street, map 53, lot 029. Go ahead.
That matter is also my client, and we're respectfully asking. We learned yesterday that I believe that there is an opinion from the city solicitor's office that I believe is going to be come available Monday. I'm optimistic that that will favor my position that we are allowed to come before the board before we get our before we request for a special permit. And if that's the case, you folks have already voted that when we are able to make that stride, it's going straight out to peer review. So this matter, I would suggest, be continued at least till the 8th. So we're one in, I'll go to the 8th and we'll continue it then too. Yeah.
And just to add, just because I know we'd like to make these motions all at once, we received earlier today a letter from a neighbor. It would be a late ad if the board wishes to vote to receive it. I have hard copies here. I put it in your next meeting. Okay. We just need a motion to continue.
Motion continue to the 8th, 55 Pulaski Street.
Mr. Chairman, move to continue the issue of 55 Pulaski Street to our September 8th meeting.
We have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next item on the agenda is 67 Pulaski Street.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, do we need to vote on the late ad to receive?
Because it's a late ad and you're continuing it, you can just receive it next meeting.
67 Pulaski Street. Is there anything on that?
I will update you that all the third-party review contracts have been signed. They are out right now and being reviewed. We're awaiting Department of Public Services to get those third-party reviews back. I take it Attorney Kelty might seek to continue this matter as well. Yes, the charter school. Pioneer.
I thought that was Mills. Yes, Pioneer is my client. We respectfully request, I can say that on the Pioneer School, 2 of the matters have already been turned. We have World Tech and we have Horsley Witten, and we're working on those. So we're moving forward. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, move to continue the issue of 67 Pulaski Street to our second meeting in September on September 8th.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Last order on the agenda is 81 Main Street, map 85, lot 094.
Just before Attorney Kelty presents on this, this is a request that has not become before the planning board before, at least in the time that I've worked here. So I just wish to update the board on why you are hearing an application for a garage on Main Street. The downtown has the downtown design standards, and as part of that, any new construction that will take place on in the area of the downtown has to undergo a site plan review to look at items such as placement and how it fits with the downtown. The idea is that we want new construction in the downtown to meet the aesthetic and characteristics of our existing downtown. So that's why this item is before the board this evening. So that's also why you do not see in front of you stormwater and all these other types of plans such as that. I do have a large image here of the architecturals of the garage that I can pass around and show it, but I know Attorney Kelty will go into this further.
Drew, is that the same plan that was in the packet?
No, the packet plan is the actual site plan. This is a hand-drawn image of the garage.
If I may, for the record, my name is John Kelty, attorney, 40 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., representing Peabody Access Telecommunications, Inc. They are the owners of the property at 81 Main Street. 81 Main Street is, for though Tom Betancourt, I'll bet you, is the only guy that remembers Fay Motor. And other than that, we are occupying David Gravok was located here, and Peabody Access has purchased the land months ago, and now they hope to build a garage area at the foreground of the property. And my plan shows that garage, which will be 640 square feet. It'll be constructed by Kevin Murdoch of Murdoch Enterprises, who is here this evening. It is going to be brick in its entirety. And Camille Bartlett, president of corporation, is here this evening, and we're happy to answer questions you may have. My site plan done by Eastern Land Survey shows that garage 1 foot off the property line. It would be our intention, provided the planning board agrees with us, we would bring that up right onto the sidewalk so that it was virtually right on the property line. That would be in keeping with the rest of the properties on Main Street. Virtually everybody on Main Street has no or extremely limited front yard. The library has a front yard, and the Knights of Columbus have a planter. But for those buildings, there aren't too many that are at all withdrawn from the front. So our thought was to make the some degree of consistency with the streetscape, bring it right up to the sidewalk, and then make it out of brick so that it mirrored and reflected the nature of the stone nature of the downtown district. And as I've said, my clients are here this evening and happy to answer questions that you may have.
You have any questions from the board? Dr. Otto?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I worked on the development of these design guidelines 7 years ago. That's how I spent my first sabbatical. And in the guidelines themselves, and Drew, this is really to you, I think, through the chair, there is a checklist with quite specific items that differs from our usual site plan review checklist. And I wonder, are we still using these downtown checklists? Because I didn't receive or didn't see in the packet any filled out checklist of that type.
That is a way that you can review this. I will say that I've looked through it, and I think it meets a majority of that checklist here. We've never done one of these like this before, and it just states that it would undergo site plan review. So I think the planning board, the idea is that the planning board is to look at this with a enhanced eye, and I think it was written in this way that, a smaller project that doesn't hit the 1,000 square feet would be looked at by the planning board to make sure that it fits with our downtown. So I think the idea here is to make sure that what is being developed here meets the characters of our downtown. And I think they are by using brick, and then as well as one of the major things is, continuing the streetscape of our downtown. I think that's accomplished by bringing it forwards. There's some other items in here that I think are more for large-scale, brand-new buildings, impact of parking and, other things such as that nature and landscape items. But again, this is a 600 square foot garage, so it's kind of difficult. I didn't really answer your question, I'm sorry, but I have looked through the guidelines and in the checklist, and I think that the things that adhere to a project like this, I believe they do meet. You know, mainly, I will say my concern from community development was that this meets the aesthetic of our, it continues the characteristics of our downtown, and I think they hit that by brick building, and I know they're gonna do a little bit of, at the top, some sort of not molding, but what's the top part? It's all brick all the way up, and then the top, and then there's like a little bit of differentiation with the roof. Bringing the building forwards, I like that as well. That, continues the facade of Main Street of the buildings close up, and it continues that kind of streetscape wall.
Excuse me, through the chair. Just
up to address, did you want him to address that, whether there's a scrolling or
Yeah, Mr. Why don't you just kind of go through what the building's going to look like? I think that would be probably the best.
What's the building gonna look,
Yeah,
materials?
in front of the building, hi, I'm Kevin Murdoch, builder in the city of Peabody for 44 years. Imagine that, huh? The front of the building is going to be a gable. It's all trussed. It's going to be black fascia boards and rake boards all the way around with crown molding coming down. So the entire front of the building is all brick. The entire building is all brick. It's all has 3.5-inch or crown molding all the way around, and with the fascias and everything else. It's going to be very aesthetic, just like everything else downtown.
Any other questions from the board?
Just one quick.
Dr. Otto, sorry.
I agree with, through the chair, I agree with you, Drew, that it does come to back of sidewalk, and it is built in, proposed to be built in a material that is compatible with other downtown buildings. But frankly, I find that the architectural drawing is insufficient really to convey enough about the building. It's a sketch. And as somebody who worked on the development of these guidelines, I understand it's only a garage. I have no problem with the garage use, but a lot of work went into that, and a lot of money, frankly, that the city paid to consultants went in on that. And I'm not seeing the result of that process playing out in this process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other question? Did you say, Diane, did you have a question?
No, Mr. Chairman, but I concur with Dr. Otto's concerns.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, just to be clear about it, I'll be recusing myself from a vote on this topic, on this property, due to a prior and existing relationship on the construction of it. Just wanted to make sure we didn't violate any rules that I should or shouldn't be voting. So, but I do agree with the concern. Happy to make comment positively or otherwise when we're able to compare the elevations to the design guidelines.
Just a curious question, you probably already answered it, but what's the garage going to be used for?
It'll house the mobile television vehicle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I notice there's a 5-foot side yard, and it appears that the neighbor of the existing building likely has less than 5. So we're always courteous to the fire department about worrying about getting somewhere to fight a fire. But also curiosity is that the 5 foot, I think that number comes from an accessory structure in zoning. And so this is an accessory structure to this. Does the zoning downtown not have a 500 square foot limit for accessory structures? And if it does, doesn't this have to go to ZBA?
The 5 feet, no. The answer is no, we don't have a side yard requirement in the downtown. The 5 feet is actually coming from the fact that you're correct that the adjacent property is virtually on the property line. They have air conditioning units that bump out. We're actually accommodating the ability to be able to get at their units. Also, some of their electrical equipment is on that side of the building. And the fire department did have concerns. They're asking us, their connection pipe will be on that side. It'll come out and be a 90 heading towards the street. Initially, when Mr. Mello had drawn the plan, we thought we'd pull it off by 1 foot because the fire connection might well be in the front, so we didn't want it overhanging the sidewalk. But we've agreed through Kevin and his meetings with the fire department, it'll be on the side, and that's part of the reason that we have that 5-foot side yard, and we will not require a variance for that.
Okay. And also, not related to the plans or anything, but I believe that the PAT TV was already told by the PMLP, but that there's no facilities to provide this garage with any electrical service. So it'll have to come from the building in the back.
Correct, yeah. All the electricity is coming out of the existing building in the back. It's all going to be underground all the way up, and it's going to have a 100 amp service on the inside of the building.
Very good, thank you.
And then I think just in terms of why the building is set back, and Attorney Kelty had mentioned to me that has to do with the fire department and them getting to a hydrant or a fire department connection on the building. Is that correct?
We're now going to be on the side, so we don't need that 1 foot. We'll bring it to the sidewalk, and the 5 feet is where the fire department connection will be.
Yeah, this would be, the board has the opportunity here to vote to approve a building permit for this project or deny or continue till further information.
This time I'll accept the motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we push this to our next meeting and perhaps get some sort of a more accurate, I don't know, would we want it to be color correct, Judy?
I think that the planning board, my own opinion, would want to look at what these guidelines are. I looked at them myself this afternoon. I refamiliarized myself with some of the points, but they're out there. They're on the internet if you would want to take a look at them.
Well, if we just look at the guidelines and don't have a more proper rendering, then we're going to be in the same boat, aren't we?
I agree, yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we move this to our next regularly scheduled meeting and have the proponent produce a drawing that is to scale, as this one appears to be, and is fully depictive of the detail of the front of the building, and the front and the side that faces Peabody Square, so not the side that's 5 feet from the neighbor. Don't really care about that one. That's my motion. Here's the way I see it, Jack. You got 2 people on this board that are going to vote no. That's how I see it.
So there's a motion on the floor from Mr. Samos to continue with more information.
Second.
All those in favor? And 1 abstain.
I would say that for the next meeting, if you can get us And again, I think the board can tell you differently, but I would say that if you can get us and we can chat about this, the rendering that you have, and then to point out exactly the materials that you are going to use with an item list, and it could show it on the plan, or something with more detail that shows exactly what's going in there.
Appointments, none. Definitive subdivision Stonegate, we're continuing that. Regional notices, any comments on that? Any comments on city council decision? Other matters properly before the board, I'll accept a motion.
I have a comment properly before the board. I thought 2, 3, 4 meetings ago that Mr. Robert Langley was going to be our guy at DPS to take some of the backlog away from Will so that things can get, break the log jam. Is that not the case anymore? Because tonight I'm hearing Will Pollitt, three times.
Will was overseeing projects that he was already recently overseeing, i.e. Stonegate. He was here for the original submittal, so he's still helping oversee that because he's familiar with it. 190 Rare Newberry was originally submitted with Will when he was still looking at everything. Mr. Langley has been taking over new items such as 67 Pulaski, 55 Newberry, or 55 Pulaski as well. And other 29 Newberry that was recently before there. So there's...
That's a perfect answer. Thank you very much. One more thing. So it's what I wanted to talk about before while all those people were here. I think, me personally, but I think other members of this board would love to see a roadmap of how these 7 to 15 residents up in that trailer park are able to continue their life in what is their home right now. And I think that very much involves the Rent Control Board, and I don't know. Anybody else have an opinion?
Sorry, Roy, I'm just, what do you mean continue their life? Their life would not be on this property any longer. What do you mean?
What I'm saying is that I would be very interested as an appointed board member of this board to know that, because I'm getting 2 different numbers. I'm hearing one person telling me that there's 7 occupied trailers, and then today we're hearing that there's 15 occupied trailers. Well, whatever that number is, I would be interested in all those people having a dignified path to having a place to live before the place gets bulldozed. That's what I had to say. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have one comment, too. Of course. I've mentioned this before. There are 6 board members here tonight. By, 2 members, we're able to have a meeting this evening. And the only point I want to make, and I brought it up before, there are other towns and cities out there that when there is a vacancy, whether it's planning board, zoning board of appeals, or whatever, every time that they come out, with the minutes of the meeting for whether it's the selectmen's meeting or the city council meeting and so forth, at the bottom of that meeting, they also list vacancies. There's 2 vacancies in the Board of Appeals, there's 1 on the Planning Board, there's 1 on the Conservation Commission, and so the public knows. And people who are actually looking at these minutes might say, you know what, I might be interested in something like that. I would really like someone, now I mentioned this at the board before, and I think it just goes in the minutes and known it, and that's all it goes. Drew, or through the chair, someone needs to just grab the ear of the mayor and just say, we're hurting. He knows we're hurting, but we need to, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And, I understand that they're trying to get a particular type of an engineer, but you know what? There's a lot of people who are educated in similar fields or not that could be very beneficial to this board. And we, you know, we're down, you know, I mean, there's 5 people that didn't show up. Well, there's 3 people that didn't show up, and then there's 2 alternates that are vacant right now. Is there any way that someone can actually physically talk to the mayor rather than put it in the minutes and it gets lost?
I have personally gone in the mayor's office twice and indicated the desperate need to get board members on here. We requested a letter be written by the planning office to the mayor, documented that we are short members in desperate need of alternates. I don't know, maybe if it's the mayor that appoints the members. It's not anybody who's interested to, you know, say, I'm interested in joining the planning board. It's the mayor that interviews them. It's the mayor that appoints them to this board. So I don't really know what else we can do, except all say we're not going to come to another meeting unless we have 2 more alternates.
No, and we're not going to do that, but in the same token, you know, the public out there doesn't know that these vacancies are there, and if they're on the minutes, you know, it's so easy to do. And, you know, I know the mayor makes the appointment, but, you know, I can tell you my story. I wanted to do something as a public service to the city, and I went up and asked the mayor, I said, I'd love to sit on the Board of Appeals. And his response was, well, we don't need anybody on there now, but how about sitting on the planning board? And I said, I'd love to, you know? So if people are aware, I think that all you need is 1 or 2 people to come forward and say, hey, I'd like to serve.
And I really think that that's not a bad idea. If we could add those to the bottom of the meetings. And thank you very much for that. That's a very good suggestion.
Well,
And
thank
I
you,
think we'll
Mr.
do it.
Chairman.
You know, the other thing that's a possibility too, I know it costs money, but we could each kick in $5 and we could pay if the city couldn't pay. Just put a legal ad in the newspaper. Put a small little
Unfortunately, it'd be a little bit more than $5.
Put a little,
each.
put it in the Shoppers News. A little legal ad. Send your inquiries into the mayor's office. We're looking for 2 board members or 3 board members, whatever it is, for the planning board.
And also indicate that there is a dinner at the end of the year.
I don't think we should put that in. And again, in order today, per your previous suggestions, there was a late ad that was demonstrated to me, and I refused to let the late ad go through because we all agreed we would not accept late ads, and it was my decision to stop that late ad till the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, as regards to late ads, I for one, am never opposed to receiving information or recommendations from folks or letters of support or rebuttal or whatever else. But I think when we do receive late ads, I don't want to ever feel pressured to vote that evening when we haven't had the chance to digest the late ad. So receiving the late ad, fully in support of, we should take in and have any materials available to us. But the idea of us voting the evening that we receive a late ad is what I would like to, you know, not be pressured to do moving forward.
Yeah, I would just reiterate, Matt. Again, I'm not a voting member here, but I would just reiterate Matt's concern that I think that totally disregarding all late ads would not be recommended, but that you can accept late ads. It's just, you know, that's the whole idea of a late ad is it's a late ad. It does not mean that you have to vote now because you received that late ad. Either way.
I agree.
Yeah, and particularly late ads that are from our public service department. You know, we should receive them, get the chance to digest the information, especially when it's of that much importance. So, yeah. I mean,
If the late ad was relative to something we were doing tonight, then I would allow that to have a motion. But if it's going to be something that's in a future planning board, the late ad can be distributed by email so you have a chance to read it, understand it, or we can pass it out today so you can understand it for the next meeting.
It will just be in your meeting packets for the next meeting.
Now I'll accept the motion.
Move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Aye.